If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Pick Six!
On Her Majesty's Secret Service, released in 1969, is the sixth film in the James Bond series based on Ian Fleming's novel of the same name. It marks George Lazenby's only appearance as James Bond following Sean Connery's departure from the role. The film follows Bond as he continues his pursuit of Ernst Stavro Blofeld, the elusive leader of Spectre. Bond's investigation leads him to Switzerland, where Blofeld is running a clinical research institute under the alias Count de Bluchon. Blofeld's true scheme is soon uncovered. He is brainwashing a group of women to spread a biological weapon capable of sterilizing entire populations. During the mission, Bond falls in love with Tracy DiVincenzo, the independent and headstrong daughter of crime boss Marc-Ange Draco. Unlike his previous romantic entanglements, Bond forms a deep emotional connection with Tracy. With the help of Draco, Bond infiltrates Blofeld's mountaintop hideout, Piz Gloria, leading to an intense showdown. After a dramatic battle and chase through the Swiss Alps, Bond foils Blofeld's plan, but the villain escapes. The film ends on a rare emotional note in the Bond series. Bond marries Tracy, but their happiness is short-lived. In the final moments, Blofeld and his accomplice, Irma Bunt, ambush the couple, and Tracy is killed in a drive-by shooting, leaving Bond devastated. Unlike the action-packed, gadget-heavy approach of its predecessors, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is known for its faithful adaptation of Fleming novels, its emotional depth, and some of the most stunning action sequences of the series. Though initially met with mixed reviews, the film has since gained critical appreciation and is now regarded as one of the finest entries in the James Bond series. This is On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
If you can't beat 'em, join 'em. If you're scared to fight it out, watch him and watch out. If you think your girl's a good looker, take a good look at this guy's dolls.
My name's Bond, James Bond.
The new Bond. The different 007 on Her Majesty's Secret Service. The new star, the different Bond. The name's Lazenby. George Lazenby. And he's got it made. The different Bond woman. The name's Rape. Diana Rape. This one's got class and style. Telly Savalas. Gabrielle Pizzetti. And 007 times more excitement. If you think you know your Bond, think again. This one's different.
It's true!
Drop everything. Try and make it. Marvelous is the password for the different Bond. As the man says,
This never happened to the other fella.
Pick Six!
It is I, Brad Gilmore, and we are here to talk about my second pick of six. So I'm a third of the way through with my movie recommendations to you.
Yes.
And this is 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service, starring George Lazenby, taking over the role as James Bond. I'm excited to talk to you about this one because this movie, there's a reason I picked it. this movie was the only Bond film that was never shown in those like Spike TV Thanksgiving marathons, or like TNN, if you remember that. Like they used to always do the Bond marathons during Thanksgiving, and they never showed on Her Majesty's Secret Service. So this was a movie I had to seek out, and I remember there was a videotape, like a VHS cassette in the Blockbuster. It was like the story of James Bond. It was a documentary that was like an hour long, and it was the first time I ever heard the name George Lazenby. So I'm young in my Bond career. I haven't watched much. And so I remember seeking this movie out because I'm like, who is this other Bond? And then I watched On Her Majesty's Secret Service. This movie has a very I think the pre-production of the movie is almost as fascinating as the film itself. But being that it's Lazenby's one and only, and being in recent years, it's actually found a different audience and way more appreciation than on its initial release. I thought it would be an interesting film to talk about and discuss. Now, I want to ask you this first. Where are you on Bond? Like, are you a big Bond guy, not a Bond guy? Who's your Bond? Like, let's talk about that first.
Okay. So in watching this movie, which I had not seen, thus the point of Pick Sic, I went through the list of all the Bond movies because I felt I knew Bond pretty well, and I'd seen a lot of Bond movies. I discovered as I went through the list, I have not seen probably half of them.
Wow.
And I also realized as I went through, I stopped at Dalton. I have not seen any Pierce Brosnan. I have not seen any Daniel Craig.
Wow.
I tapped out after License to Kill. And I think I've only seen 2 Bond movies in my entire life. This will make sense now since I tapped out then, in the movie theater. And they were License to Kill and Never Say Never Again.
Ah, the unofficial.
So even like, not only am I off, I'm like off the timeline. So I guess in a way I've seen Thunderball as well, if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
Same story.
Right.
So that's it. So my experience watching Bond movies was always seeing it on TV. And they used to come on a lot, I think, on the local ABC network on just like weeknights. Or maybe the weekend, I don't remember, but it would just be tonight's movie of the week, and it's one of the James Bond. And so I also realized as I was watching this, I don't think I've seen a lot of Bond movies from start to finish. I would see them on TV, and this is even before we had a VCR and all that. So I'd kind of, as a kid, be in and out of the room and probably get pushed out of the room during certain scenes when it got a little racy. And so I'm not even sure, because of that, I'm aware of Bond movies, but I probably, if you played a clip, other than who was playing Bond, I might not be able to identify which Bond movie it is. I just know, I wouldn't be able to look at it and say, From Russia with Love. It'd be, one of, maybe based on Connery's hairpiece, which one it would be as he's aging as it goes on. But yeah. So I wrote that joke down like an hour ago. I was super excited about that one. I came up with that one in the shower. Hairpiece joke. So not huge Bond, which is interesting because as I watched this, I realized I was going to be talking with a gentleman, Brad Gilmore, who actually wrote a book on Bond. So I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, James Bond, Exploring the Shaken Stirred History of Ian Fleming's 007, available wherever you get your books. But yeah, so for me, it's funny. The actual earliest memory I have of Bond is there was a VHS cassette. My dad used to have like a wall of cassettes of movies. I think everyone had the entertainment storage center where it was just filled with movies. And he had taped Never Say Never Again off of TV. And it was just like a white label with a blue or purple writing that said James Bond. It didn't even say which movie it was. But yeah. I think for me, and it's probably a similar story for a lot of people, is Bond is kind of a father-son thing, right? Is like, hey, dad loved Bond. and it was like, well, I like Bond because Dad likes Bond, and then we talk about Bond. You watch them, and you're like, oh, Connery. Connery to me is still the best Bond by far, in my opinion. But when you watch those Daniel Craig movies, if you watch Casino Royale, now it's like I feel like I have to put it on another list. But we can't do 2 Bonds in the first season.
It can't be pick Bond.
But it's just one of those series that I feel like once you understand the formula of it, like you look forward to the formula of Bond, which is interesting with this movie, breaks so much of the formula early on. Because we were used with Connery of cold open that doesn't really have to do with the movie into a beautiful title sequence and a great song. And then
with the theme song,
which is kind of different here in this movie. And then you go into the mission, the first Bond girl, and then you get the main Bond girl. You get the Q scene with all the gadgets, a great villain who is like kind of a second in command to the big villain, which is Blofeld in this movie, which is in most movies, in the early Eon productions. And, you get the cool gadgets. You see him use the gadgets, the car, all the things. We get some of that in this Bond, but not a lot of it. This was an interesting kind of turn, I think, for James Bond in a lot of ways. So why don't we address the Lazenby of it all? So they do 5 Connery movies: Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, and then Connery's done. As you said, his hairpiece is out of whack. Yeah. He's not doing Bond anymore. It's over. He's going to sail into a different direction.
He's already played a Japanese guy. Where do you go after that?
After you play a Scottish Japanese, which is a very normal hybrid in those days, where do you go? So he steps out of it, and as the story goes, if you watch the Eon Productions documentary Everything or Nothing, or you watch Becoming Bond on Hulu, actually later in the podcast, I'm going to play my interview with George Lazenby that I did a few years back. So he'll fill in probably a lot of these details, maybe repeat some of them. But he was an Australian model who had never acted before a day in his life and heard they were looking for the next James Bond. According to him, he steals Sean Connery's suit from Savile Row, gets his hair cut like him at the same barber, walks into Harry Saltzman, who was one of the producers at the Times office, and says, I hear you're looking for the next James Bond. This is and here I am. Asked him where he did movies before. Have you ever acted before? Yeah, I did a movie in Japan. I did one in Germany. It named a bunch of places where he thought that Harry Saltzman at the time in the 60s, you couldn't find these movies.
Google it.
Yeah, I can't Google it. And next thing you know, he's on the set of Bond. They thought he was gay at first because he was a model. They sent a hooker to his room. Like this is what they did in the 60s, I guess. Huh. And found out that he wasn't.
Wait a minute. We need to find out. Should we ask him? No. I have a better idea. Let's send a prostitute and see what he does. But what if he's just morally like, oh, no, thank you. I should get to know you. If he's straight, he won't do that.
Yeah.
And apparently he didn't.
And he didn't. He didn't. No. He did not do that. And so they found out that they sent him through all kinds of tests of like swimming and horseback riding, really trying to see like, we don't really care so much about the acting. Can you look?
But the gay thing was first. They're like, we should see if he can act. But first, we need to know this guy's sexual orientation.
Right. Which I guess, still to put it in perspective, I guess in the 60s, it's still, whoa, hey.
Well, that character too is a very masculine character. So
right. And so they had concerns. Turns out he's not any of the things that they were concerned with, which, not
gay or an actor.
Not gay or an actor. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Right. And he goes,
an actor.
He goes, I think the story goes on his first day in production, tells the director, I've never acted a day before in my life. And the director says,
fooled you.
Guess what? You fooled some of the most ruthless people in Hollywood. So keep your mouth shut and I'll make you the next James Bond. And then we get on Her Majesty's Secret Service. How much did you know of the Lazenby story?
I knew a bit because I think I had seen the All or Nothing. It's All or Nothing, that the documentary?
Everything or Nothing.
Everything or Nothing, All or Nothing. I'd seen that, so I knew a lot of the backstory. I knew that he'd only done one. I was under the impression that the movie did not do well, but that's not the case. It did very well as far as James Bond movies go. So it wasn't that. But I knew a lot of the backstory going in. So when he has, I mean, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in a bit. I think, well, one of the questions I want to ask you as the Bond guy is, do you think knowing the backstory of the movie hurts or is better as a first-time viewer of this movie?
Like knowing what he had to do to get Bond?
Right, knowing behind the scenes, knowing it's a new guy, knowing that the production of it was kind of wonky as far as everything they were doing, mixing up like which Bond movies they were going to do. Try to find Snow for the end, and then him being one and done basically and saying, and that's it. Do you think it's good to know that, or is it better to go in not even knowing that they're going to change James Bond, and all of a sudden, because the opening scene, you get a lot of close-ups of him driving the car, almost like they're waiting to like pull for the curtain to go up, and here's the new guy. So it already feels like the way it starts is everybody watching this knows this is not going to be Sean Connery, but we're going to make you wait for a while. And then so much so that after his fight, he is going to break the fourth wall, look into the camera, and basically acknowledge that he's the new actor by saying,
"That never happened to the other fella." Which is probably the most iconic line from this movie. Like when people think of this movie, it's like in Bond circles, everyone always will say like, "Oh, that's never happened to the other fellow," and it's like a funny thing that we, it's kind of an insider joke or what have you. So I think a few things. I think it does enhance your viewing experience if you know what happened and how he got the role of Bond. Because when I first saw this movie, and this is before like a bunch of documentaries and books were written about Bond, I remember asking my dad about Lazenby, and he's like, "Oh, he's the one who he did one and he got fired because it wasn't any good." Right? That was kind of the sentiment. When in fact, he was not fired at all. He did the Bond. They wanted him to do more, and he turned them down. Right? Yeah. Which is insane to think. And one of the reasons was he was like, "I don't want to be typecast as James Bond." And the great irony is that he's typecast as James Bond. And what's unfortunate is there is a bit of a narrative about him. Even on shows or movies, you'll hear people refer to him as a joke. Like, "Oh, I'm the Lazenby. I don't want to be the Lazenby." Or, "What are you? Who do you think you are? Lazen?" It's like a thing. Like his name carries a certain...
It'd be like a Cousin Oliver when they introduce a kid to a sitcom. Like, uh-oh, the show's on its way out.
Right.
But he's like a shorthand for a one and done...
Exactly.
Guy that didn't live up to the guy before.
Exactly. And so to me, I think it helps because if you know that he actually decided to step away on his own, it kind of makes you go, "Oh, okay, so it wasn't because he did a bad performance." Now, you can discuss his performance in certain ways. At certain times, you go, "Oh, this guy is kind of green and not hitting this dialogue really well." And then there are moments where it does work and he feels confident in the role. And then there's some weird ADR for like 30 minutes. Yeah. So are you surprised? Let me ask you this. Are you surprised that this is regarded in most lists as one of the best Bond movies?
Yes, it's because we've talked about this for a little bit, and I haven't even said I personally didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. I'm moviegoers still in 1969. Maybe in 50 years I'll catch up, and then I'll have the appreciation that the Christopher Nolans and the Steven Soderberghs have now, where they think it's the best Bond movie, and they love it. And the reasons that they say, I agree. Because I love the cinematography. I think we're going to talk about that. The snowscapes and everything in Switzerland is fantastic. But when he has his scene with Moneypenny at the very beginning and he's walking in, I thought, uh-oh, because to me, he was very, to use his line later, very stiff, but not in a great way. We'll get to that too. And it seemed like the only scene they were doing where they were it was the segue from Connery to the new guy, where he's basically walking in and everyone's treating him like it's still Connery. Moneypenny still wants to bang him, and everyone's talking to him, and he even goes like through his memoirs of, oh, remember when I had this? And it's so they're telling you same guy. Which another question I have for you: do you think that's good to always have him be the same guy? Could they have just said 007 is the title, and James Bond is the name we give, but this is not the same guy?
Yeah, that's been a fan theory, before. It's like, hey, is 007 and James Bond itself a code name for these different people who inhabit it? I like the continuity of the character. I think it just makes you feel a certain connection to him throughout the movies, even though they're not interconnected as we now expect since the Marvel universe started. This was their first attempt, and they definitely, even in the opening credits, they're like, we're going to show you clips from the other movies. This is the same guy.
This is the same guy.
Same films, Bond.
Right.
We did in the before. Yep. There's Honey Rider. There's Pussy Galore. There's a lady. Here we go. Here's From Russia with Love. Right. Here's Thunderball.
Moving on.
Yeah, we're showing you all of them, right? And then you're right. There's a moment where he resigns and then goes through his desk and he sees the dagger of Honey Rider, and they start playing Underneath the Mango Tree. They start playing From Russia with Love.
That's cool.
They play a little Goldfinger. Yeah, I like that, but it's just, again, we're showing you same guy, same guy. I will say, I do love that they acknowledged it, because in the opening scene, the cold open, although I'm not exactly sure why Diana Rigg was walking into the ocean. I don't know.
I have questions for that. There's
That's unanswerable
a lot about
question.
their entire relationship.
We don't get, because they
so many questions about. She's suicidal.
She is suicidal. She's walking in there. Bond stops for some reason that we're not really sure of and saves her.
Right. He doesn't know her.
He doesn't know her, so he saves her.
That's nice of him.
I don't really understand.
If it had been a guy, would he have saved him?
No, but the filmmakers were worried that he would.
He would have. So it's a good thing they sent that lady of the night.
So I like that he acknowledged it, because everyone's thinking it. I like that they did. That's not whatever happened. This never happened to the other fellow.
Wink.
I like it. I would have preferred him not look in the camera, right? Mm-hmm. But I understand it. I even like in the gun barrel scene where he gets down on one knee and they're showing us this is going to be the Bond who is different. Right. He gets down on one knee. He's going to ask the woman to marry him, right? Although people say that wasn't intentional. I have a hard time believing that it wasn't. But I like them acknowledging it. I do feel, though, his performance, I feel two ways about it. One, for this to be his first movie acting ever, anything kind of like that, I am surprised at some of the stuff he pulls off. And then for it to be his first movie, and you tell me that, I can see it. Do you know what I mean?
But going back to what you said about knowing the backstory, if you don't know anything about everything that happened, and all of a sudden he says this never happened to the other fella, if you don't know anything, you're like, what other fella? I guess because he's not really James Bond, but then everybody treats him like James Bond. But then Blofeld doesn't even recognize him later in the movie.
That's
supposed to be the same guy. And then I guess technically Blofeld's not even the same guy.
It's not.
So if they're not the same guy, perfect, makes sense. Because then you can be like, oh, you're 007 now. Huh. And if you haven't seen the movie, listeners, then you're very confused, because I totally jumped ahead.
They should see the movie before they listen to this.
See that.
Well, right. I think that, yes, there's ways they could have benefited from this. Now, you also have to think, they were cranking movies out. So this is the 6th James Bond. They started in 62. This is 69, right? Yeah. So they're pretty much doing a Bond film a year. And they're just like, we got to keep it going, keep it going,
keep the machine going. But I just think, for tone-wise, I think they just wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They're like, hey, different guy, not different guy. Different guy, different attitude, different everything, but same guy, because it does bounce around. He's flirty with Moneypenny, and then he goes off and, he meets Diana Rigg, who is amazing. Yes. I love her. She's my favorite character. I kind of wanted her to be James Bond. I wanted to follow her for the movie. And he falls in love with her because she's dark, but not because she wants to kill herself. And then he meets her father, who's a mob boss, who wants to hire him to marry his daughter, Tracy, because she needs a man to discipline her, and Bond is the guy to discipline her, and I'll give you £1 million. And he says, no, I will not take £1 million. However, I need some info to find
slow film,
the bad guy from the other movie. So I'll wine and dine her for you for some info. So his motives are not necessarily romantic, considering this is the romantic James Bond movie. And then, so he goes off to the restaurant in the snow, which is a cool little air.
Yeah.
And then this is the other thing I wrote in the shower, so I'm very proud of this line. Then he walks into basically an episode of Flavor of Love, where he's got every race of hot woman,
yes,
just hanging around. And the second he walks in disguise, because he's pretending to be a scientist.
I think he's a genealogist.
That's it.
Yeah.
And gay.
Yeah, because remember, like, at first one of the girls goes, "What's a genealogist?"
Yeah. Oh, so here's again where this is what I mean by having cake and eat it too. So romantic Bond, but then we go in hard on like a 12-year-old wrote these Bond scenes, because now he goes in, it's like every beautiful woman in the world, they all have dinner, and all these women from different nations have the most phallic dish from their region they possibly can, and they're just like, the Asian one is like sucking on her chopsticks, and they're just mesmerized by him. And who's the cute one with the Harpo Marx hair? What her name? Well, there's two he goes off with.
Oh, you're talking about the first one who her name is, I will tell you.
Hold on, I have it.
I'll tell you. Who is it? Because one of the angels of death or whatever.
Angels of Death. So Blofeld has the Angels of Death.
Ruby Bartlett.
Ruby. Okay, so yeah. Ruby, good old Ruby. I thought she was fun. She's allergic to chickens. She's there because she's allergic to chickens. Yes. And she's a farmer, I guess, so that's a problem.
Yes.
Not a great job to choose if you're allergic to chickens, but she's there, and all of them have, all the Angels of Death, they all have some kind of allergy.
Yes.
Yes?
That's why they go there.
Yeah, they go there to get rid of their allergy, and she's got to get over this allergy of chickens. I can't live with this. So while she's sitting there, good move, by the way. She wants him to go to her room, but they've got the cock blocker there. And now my favorite small character is Bunt.
Yes. Irma Bunt.
Irma Bunt.
Yeah.
She's the mean little German chaperone.
Yes.
That doesn't want anybody to have fun. She brings him in. She's like, stay away from the man, all you horny women. And so they all sit around, and then he's dressed in a kilt and a little frilly thing around his neck. And she, what did we say her name was?
It's Irma Bunt.
No, the
Ruby.
Horny Ruby. Ruby gets her lipstick, reaches down under his kilt to write her room number down.
Yes. On
his leg. She's down there for a while, so I was very surprised later. I thought it was going to be like 4 digits. She's just 8. Spending some time under there, and I'm like, yeah, it's 8. It would have been better if it was like 1. But then it's a good thing she wasn't 1, because you would just think, oh, she just made a weird mark on my leg. So it's lucky it's 8. So then I don't know what this had to do with the mission, but he goes to her room, and this is where he learns that there's some kind of
Weird mind control or something.
that there's subliminal messages going on when they go to sleep. The voice of Blumfield comes in and says, "No, you are going to be under my control." But he does have sex with her.
Of course.
And then he goes to another room where another one of the death
Nancy
gives her the same lines.
Yeah.
They both say, "Oh, I didn't know you like girls." And he says, "Oh, I normally don't." But then he has sex with her the same night. So apparently he's forgotten about Tracy.
Well, I will tell you, yes,
Please.
several things here. Several things. Okay, first, Ruby Bartlett is the name of the English woman who he beds first, who had room number 8. She it's actually funny. This is her second Bond movie. She was in the '67 Casino Royale, which was like a comedy parody Bond movie.
Yeah.
So, and this was 2 years later. So they're like, oh, hey, let's get her, which is weird. And Ursula Andress was in that movie too, who played Honey Rider in Dr. No. But the plots of Bond movies, I'm going to start there. They normally don't make sense, right?
Okay.
The plot has always been secondary. And a lot of the times they're just recycled from movie to movie. It's like, oh, this is kind of like if you look at the plan of A View to a Kill, which I don't know if you've seen that one. It was 85.
That is one of them, yes.
Okay. If you look at
good theme song, too.
Dance into the fire. It's one of the great ones. But the song is. But if you look at the plot of that and you look at the plot of Goldfinger, they're almost the same plot, right? They're very similar.
Which is why I mentioned it's hard for me to know which Bond movie I'm watching because of that very reason.
You're like, is this the new?
Even this movie had the casino.
Had a casino,
so
Baccarat.
That was nice. So when they went to play, I'm like, okay, bleep, there you go.
Which is one of my favorite shots of the movie. We'll get into categories here in just a second. But like where there's a few camera things that I like that they do, like a few editing. Now there's also some bad editing in this movie. Yeah. There's a couple parts.
I chalked that up as the time.
I chalked it up as the time,
even when they kind of speed up when he's the very cool scene where he's on the ski lift, like on the wire, is great. But every once in a while, they undercrank the camera a little bit to make it look like he's going faster. And all of a sudden, it's a Charlie Chaplin movie.
The undercranking of the fight scenes, I actually liked. I actually liked how the fight scenes were shot in this movie.
It's like pre-Born Identity. Yeah.
It's very steady cam, like boom, close up, real quick cuts.
That's true.
You know, I really actually enjoyed how the fights were all shot for the most part. And I do like the transition they do from here's the beautiful pool at the casino during the day, and then boom, it's at night, and the words casino are reflected in the pool. So we know we're about to get some Bond stuff. I enjoyed that aspect of it. But yeah, the Bond movie plots, they don't make a lot of sense. And really, when he goes undercover as Sir Hillary and he goes to the Switzerland, to the lair, which actually all-time great lair. Really enjoyed the lair. I enjoyed the iciness of it, you know, in the underground.
The view.
The view is beautiful.
Beautiful. I would just sit out there looking out the window.
The multicolored room at one point. I enjoyed all that. But the fact is, he goes to Switzerland as Sir Hillary to pretend to be a genealogist to help Blofeld, who's now posing as somebody else, help him track down his family lineage. But Blofeld isn't really this person he's pretending to be, but he had surgery on his earlobes to show us that he is a different, I guess that's how we explain that he's a different Blofeld. And then when you want to go into the next movie, which is Diamonds Are Forever, the way they try to explain that Blofeld is crazy.
Right.
But anyway, so like the plot isn't...
Got rid of the scar too.
No scar, still got the cat, and he's bald, so we know it's the same guy.
Yeah. Well,
But it just, the plot doesn't make sense. And here's the other thing, is they're like, Tracy doesn't like Bond, is like, when they're in Spain at the Matador thing, like, she's like not feeling him. Just tell him what he wants to know, Dad, so he can leave me alone. And then he tracks her down, and then we get this montage of they're in love, and they're shopping.
And then we get to hear the theme song.
Which is an all-time Bond theme song. All the Time in the World from Louis Armstrong. We have all the time in the world. I like how he says world. It's wild.
Wild. I hope this is a clip. I hope this becomes a clip. Just that little part on TikTok.
But the Bond song is great. It wasn't in the opening credits, which it should have been. Sometimes they did that.
It's a ballad, so I can see. Well, they've had ballads.
No, most of them are ballady. So
yeah, that's true.
It makes
it's an all-time
high, or Nobody Does It Better, which is the Spy Who Loved Me. So anyway, then that's where the movie feels like two movies to me. So it's like there's the love story, and then we're gonna stop the love story for about 45 minutes, and we're gonna be in the Alps for a while. Right. I
agree. It did feel like I felt watching it, it kicked in. Like it was like the first 40, it's funny you say that, 45 minutes. Yeah. Like, okay, this is going to be a rough episode where I'm going to walk in and go, sorry, Brad, your movie's dog poop.
Yeah.
But once he gets there, I'm like, okay. And then I enjoyed all that. And then when Tracy shows up again, anyway.
Tracy, so I guess we're meant to think, okay, she's a ride or die. So she finds where he's at. She says that my dad told me where you were, and that's why she's there. But yeah, when he's there for 45 minutes of the movie, it's just like, we're not talking about Tracy. I'm asleep with other women.
Yeah, same, like an hour apart.
An hour apart, same night. And then I'm set up dates for later. I'll see you at 8. I'll see you at 9.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get this thing popping. He's Sir Hillary, and
got to go around the world.
And I think they even make an assertion that some of the women thought that he was gay, right? They're like, "Oh, we didn't know you were into."
They both say, "I didn't know you like girls."
So,
which now with your backstory,
maybe that was an inside joke.
The backstory helps.
Maybe that was an inside joke.
Let's even have a line that they all think he's
gay.
Gay.
And that is ADR, right? When he's Sir Hillary with his accent.
It's not his voice, right? Didn't they get somebody else to do it? Like even the dad, Mop Dad is somebody else's voice, I think.
So I think that for the majority of the movie, it's Lazenby's voice. But when he's Sir Hillary, it's a very distinct British accent that doesn't sound.
He's not that good that he's pulling off a whole different voice.
A whole different voice beautifully and perfectly. So I feel like that was
so maybe that's why Blofeld was confused. He's like, it looks just like Bond, but
he's got
no
glasses
way.
and a different
not that
voice.
Good. Yeah, he's wearing glasses, and he's a homosexual.
Yeah.
Bond is clearly a heterosexual.
Yeah, this is not James.
So I'll figure it out later.
So those are weird. It's just the plot didn't get me, and I think the movie's too long. The movie's too long. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
I will say yes, very long. But if it's going to be long, it seemed like this movie is basically held up as this is the serious Bond, the romantic Bond.
Mm-hmm.
But the relationship with Tracy seems like super rushed, and for me, it feels like, why does she even like him?
We don't understand.
And he didn't seem to like her. And then when he finally gets back together with her because she shows up, he says, there's not another woman like you. I'm thinking, yeah, there are. There were 12 in the room, and you've already gotten through 2 of them. And will you marry me? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. That seems, for Mr. I enjoy the bachelor life, which he says at the beginning when he's offered the £1 million to hang out with Tracy. Now he's like, yeah, I'll marry you. Maybe those last 2 that at the lair, he's like, what am I doing with my life? I'm lying to these women. I'm coming up with this fake accent. They're writing on my leg and it doesn't even faze me. What am I doing with my life? And he feels like now I got to settle down.
Yeah, it just there's aspects of it that work for me and aspects that don't. Which I just feel like this is an interesting movie to talk about.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I like to kind of bring it up. And this is a really just interesting backstory. I have a couple other notes, and then we'll get into the categories. I think the only time in any movie ever, there's like a joke about Bond that he knows everything, right? Like he's just an expert at everything. And there's a laugh out loud moment in this movie for me. It's the only time I've ever heard this word in my life, is where he goes to visit M, like midway through the movie. and M is looking at a bunch of butterflies, right? And Bond makes a comment about the size of one of the butterflies and how it's unusual for the species, right? And then M goes, I didn't know you were into lepidoptery, which is the only time I've ever heard that word in my life. And, that is the study of butterflies or moths. And then I was reminded of the Norm Macdonald moth joke, which made me laugh. And then I thought, I'm going to use lepidoptery in a sentence sometime in the next week and really blow somebody's mind, right? And sound very educated. I had to make point of that. And then
please do it at a pro wrestling event.
You know what? I'm gonna bring lepidoptery.
He's flying like a moth, and believe me, I am an expert.
I'm a lepidopetrist at it. So
I would know.
I had to throw that one out there. But okay, let's get into some of these categories. Do you want to get into these categories?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. We're going to break these down.
Categories here on Pick Six.
We got some new categories that we're going to throw in here. We're going to start with some performance and characters. Scene stealer. Who's got the crown for you in this one?
Tracy. Diana Rigg.
Diana Rigg. Killer.
Yeah, number one. Like I said, I wanted her to be the star. It felt to me like she was the one that had it all together, and Bond was her sidekick.
It did feel like
she shows up. She's like, "You come with me."
It did feel like a sidekick. That was
interesting. So I could see at that point, I got why he liked her, and maybe that's why he made the big change. He's like, "Hey, I may know a lot about lepidoptery, but this lady right here."
Is this one of the things where it's like, hey, we know that our lead isn't a strong actor because he's never acted before. Yeah. So let's put a really strong actress with him.
If they did, she should have been with him the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like she should have gone to Switzerland too and been like his partner throughout the whole thing. And that would have been interesting. But then that becomes almost like, I thought about this too. There were certain things I could tell Austin Powers was spoofing from this particular movie, including Blunt. You could see definitely her character and Scott. And it's what I think of when people see Scary Movie before they see Scream. Like, oh, that must be rough to see the parody first and then go back and watch what it's doing. Because how seriously can you take the original one?
Yeah.
So I did have moments where I'm picturing Austin Powers right now when he had the frilly shirt. And,
yes, of course.
and of course, Dr. Evil is definitely a Blofeld. But they would be interesting if those two stuck together. The whole movie. But she's. I hope she shows up in the next one because she's great.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a minute. I agree. It was Diana Rigg. I want to talk more about Diana Rigg here in a moment. But let's go to Cameo King and Queen. Who gets the medal for the best cameo in this movie? I have an answer, but it's kind of it's an overall answer.
Oh, well, let's hear yours.
So mine is Desmond Llewellyn, who plays Q. Even though he's not really in this movie a lot, he played Q from '63, where we first see him in From Russia with Love, into all the way almost into 2000. Right? He played The World Is Not Enough. And The World Is Not Enough.
Is the Q character not in Dr. No?
Q is not in Dr. No. No.
Okay.
No. We don't see him until the second movie, which is From Russia with Love, where his name is Major Boothroyd, but also known as Q. And then that's the only time I think they referred to him as Boothroyd ever again.
I'd go by Q too.
But like he played Q through Sean Connery, Roger Moore. He played it with George Lazenby. He played it with Timothy Dalton, all the way through the third of 4 Pierce Brosnan movies. And the only reason he didn't, they were planning for his kind of successor to come in, which is my guy from oh my gosh, all the Mel Brooks movies, John Cleese,
Monty Python,
and they were kind of planning for him. He was actually John Cleese was first known as R because R comes after Q. You get it, QR. But Desmond Llewellyn died in a car crash, so it wasn't like he aged out of the role or he died. He unfortunately died in a car crash.
God took him. Wow.
Yeah, and he was probably going to be in more Bond movies. He was in 17 of the 25.
So he was allowed to age, and then everybody else stayed young. He'd be like the only aging character on The Simpsons.
Right. And well, the thing is like for Bond, that's why I'm saying the rules are always a little loose. Is like we get new money pennies, we get new Bonds, we get new M's, we get new Felix Leiters all the time. There's like, I think every movie had a different Felix for a while. They would just change him every time. So you'd be like, oh, this is
like the Griswold
Felix.
Kids.
Exactly. It's like the Griswold Kids.
Movies.
And then you change M, and then like the always interesting thing with Bond is, so M was played by Judi Dench through the Pierce Brosnan movies. And then they're like, hey, we're going to reboot Bond and we're going to start him from the beginning because Casino Royale is like the origin story of Bond. But we're still going to have Judi Dench because how could you not have Judi Dench?
Right.
Even though it doesn't make sense that she's in this one.
I kind of like that though, where the rules are there are no rules. It's just because
whatever we want for this movie.
Because Bond.
There's no one.
They
So
referenced that he's on Majesty's Secret Service that something happened a few years ago in the 60s. So they do acknowledge years and time.
Yeah.
But then the technology and the time period moves right along, but it's still youngish Bond. Roger Moore towards the end, not so much, but everybody else. I do like Roger Moore. And if you do a kill, he's just shuffling along.
He's like, I think he was in his 60s at the time, or maybe late 50s. I think he was 58. He
had a running double, yes?
Yeah. Yeah. And when he took over as Bond for Live and Let Die, he was older than he is older than Sean Connery.
Right.
Chronologically speaking. And he was like, he did 7 Bond movies. Okay. Who do you have for the cameo king or queen? Who do you like?
Oh, that goes to Ilsa Stephart, who is my Irma Bunt. I thought she was cool.
Oh, she was good.
I like that she just was a big old bee, and she certainly becomes very important at the end of the movie.
She definitely.
And so much so that the real actress I read, passed away. That's a downer. We're just talking about all these dead actors, but she passed away right after. I guess they had planned on continuing her character in the Bond movies, but she died and they did not recast her. They just went, well, that's it for her.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you see the end of the movie, you would think that we are going to continue with this. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, this is a new category that I like. Okay, the better with Nicholson or Denzel test. Would this movie be better with Jack Nicholson or Denzel Washington in the lead? I do think the movie would be better with Denzel or Jack in the lead. What do you think? I have which one I would prefer. Both. I
do too, but it depends on, because this movie for me is so bipolar on what they want it to be. If it's classic Bond, it should be Nicholson. But if you want it to be romantic and you want me to believe that he falls in love with Tracy and that Tracy likes him, it's got to be Denzel.
Yeah, I'm going Denzel.
I think Denzel would pull off the end in a way I do not feel was pulled off at the end.
Yeah, we have to talk about that.
We're coming, but
we're coming to it.
I think Denzel would make me go, oh yeah, he's bummed out.
Well, Denzel, just as Bond in general, would crush it. I mean, he would just crush it.
Can you imagine just him coming through at the beginning? He wouldn't take a knee.
All right, okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Money Petty, please get off me.
It's Blue Magic. It's a brand name.
It's a terrible impression.
It's really
so bad.
I can't do Denzel. I can't do Jack either. They're two very impressionable people. I like Denzel as James Bond, but I think Jack could pull it off too. But he'd do it a little bit different, you know? Right. All right, this is where we're going to talk about it. The Great Scott moment. Can I get a Great Scott?
Great Scott!
Great Scott moment of the film is where Tracy dies. I mean, getting shot in the head, through the window. That's how the movie ends. They end the movie.
Hey, everybody, she dies.
You buy into this love story. You're there for it. Okay, say you buy in. Say you're there. You have the wedding.
Let's pretend we buy in.
It's exciting. We're happy.
Yeah.
Bond's actually going to ride off into the sunset.
And you're thinking, boy, this changes the entire franchise forever. The lady killing Bond has now got a wife. How are they going to handle this in the future?
Yeah, they're going to kill her about 5 minutes after he gets married.
Poison envelopes.
No, this one, she gets shot right in the head.
She gets shot in the face.
In the face, through the window, by Irma Bunt.
Yeah, by Irma Bunt on the way. Just did a little drive-by, like they were waiting.
Was Savalas driving, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Blofeld is driving.
Yeah. Why wasn't he taking the shot?
I don't know.
Because he knows.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even need to be in the car, really. She could have probably done it with just one hand sticking out of the...
Maybe he couldn't do it because he was going to marry her, right? Blofeld at one point was like,
her.
I want you to be my countess. And she's like, I'm already a countess.
Yeah. What else you got?
Yeah.
Maybe he's like, okay, she does got to go, but I can't do it. I'll drive. And then maybe he even stalled. He's like, oh, no, we missed it. They left. And then they pull over. Bond and Mrs. Bond pull over because the little bratty kids are driving by, like giving them crap for getting married, and they got flowers all over their car. So he pulls over to like, I got to get rid of these. I mean, I'm married, but I don't want to look like I need a prostitute sent to my room. So he gets all the flowers off the car, and that's it.
That's it. That's all.
Yeah. And then she gets shot in the face. And then that's it. And then don't worry about people wondering how Bond was going to continue as a married man. You won't have to worry about it.
Okay. Let me ask you, because part of this doesn't make sense. And it sounds like I don't like this movie, but I do like this movie.
Listen, movies that I like, I have torn apart because of details like this. So I don't feel that way.
But so to me, Bond is like pizza. Like, is there really such a bad thing? That's bad pizza.
Right.
Pizza.
That's true. It's still Bond.
Good. It's still Bond, and I still like it.
Right.
But when she gets shot and he realizes it, a patrolman, I think, comes up to check on the car, and he's like,
yeah, I guess.
We have,
hey.
Is everything all right? He's like, everything's all right. Everything's fine.
She's resting.
She's resting. We have all the time in the world. And
no, sir, she's dead.
And I didn't really get it. I understand that he was sad that his wife that he just married died.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
He's a quitter.
But I don't know. Like, I guess I was just confused. I was just confused by his reaction.
This is when I said it feels rushed, but this really felt like they just needed her not to be at the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
But I read that this was if
Lazenby?
GL had continued on, this was going to be how the next movie started, or it's going to be post credits or something like that.
Yeah.
And when they got a feeling he wasn't coming back, they're like, well, we need to kill this entire story with him. So it just felt like you were along for the ride, and it was so rushed, and his reaction was so just kind of defeatist. Like, almost like he expected, I can't have a wife. And yeah, this happens. So it's like you followed the movie along, and then they go, pew. And it is shocking if you don't know what's coming. But again, if you know the backstory of the movie, then you know that this isn't going to work out. And then it just kind of feels rushed. He gives up really quick. The camera stops on the bullet hole in the windshield.
Yeah.
You sit there for a second, and then the jams kick in. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. You can't go into like the rock and theme, Dr. No theme when we're like sitting here mourning. Like, what a bummer walking out of the theater. Like, well, that was fun. And then, oh, she's dead. Good night, everybody.
It's a big
but we'll put
bummer.
the theme on. Yeah.
I think that's why, and you know how some people are.
I know it's cheap, and I know this is how the book probably ended too.
It's exactly like the book,
right? But it just felt like, to me as a viewer, it felt like they didn't know what to do with this. So it's kind of like Back to the Future too. Like, we don't know what to do with Jennifer, so knock her out, stick her in the alley, and we'll come back and get her. They didn't know what to do with her, so they just kill her. And then that's it. And so I didn't feel like the emotion part, one, because Bond didn't really seem to. He was just kind of like bummed out. And two, it was like, well, we didn't really get to even see them other than the montage, like hang out. So whatever, I don't care. Because also, Bond, there's probably, he'll meet somebody in the hospital that gives him a look. Some nurse will be like, oh, hello, Mr. Bond. And he'll go off into the ER and do his business and they'll get over it.
Yeah, I appreciate that they took a swing, right? Of like, you know what? We're gonna take a big swing here. We got a new Bond. We're gonna get him married, and then we're gonna kill her. And that's how the movie's gonna end. It's gonna end on a down note instead of every other Bond movie, almost up until this most recent one, No Time to Die, ends on a high note. Is like da 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 da. Hey,
everybody dance.
The Spy Who Loved Me is like where he's making out with the Russian chick and they go 007. He goes, I'm just keeping the British end up, sir. It's like da 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 da. Like
that makes sense. But it just seemed like, to your point, they took a swing and like he's gonna get married, and then they chickened out. No, or he's not.
Yeah,
she's dead.
It is though. If you don't know it's coming, and even when you know it's coming, it is such a sharp turn that it is the Great Scott Moment trophy.
You do have a dread that when you know it's coming, you're like, uh-oh, here we go. Kind of how you feel throughout most of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You're like, uh-oh, this is going to be bad. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why, to me, it felt rushed. And then when they kick in the jam at the end, I'm like, oh, I didn't even have time to be sad. Out of the theater, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a bummer.
And people must have just walked out like, what was that? Like,
totally.
I would love to have worked in that movie theater and just watch everybody file out like zombies afterwards. Like, you guys like the movie? I don't know.
It's tough.
It was fun. They were bobsledding and that was cool.
It's tough, man. It's a tough one.
Like the only character I believed.
The best character of the movie, you kill her.
Best character, you kill her. So I hope you bring back Connery.
The thing is, and I want to talk about Connery too, because they do bring Tracy. They bring the element of Tracy back in. I think it's For Your Eyes Only with Roger Moore, where he's just at her gravesite and he gives her some flowers.
Oh, okay.
And that's but where it's like, hey, we're acknowledging the past of Bond, even in this two Bond later guy.
They didn't retcon it as far as that never happened. That was a dream.
No, they definitely acknowledge it later on, which is interesting.
About owning, I guess, that it happened. So that's nice. Lesser franchises would have been like, okay, Halloween 4 through 7 didn't happen. 8.
Yes, exactly.
We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. It was in For Your Eyes Only at the beginning. That's where he goes.
Also, good theme song.
Oh, yes.
For your eyes only.
Let's go to the Best Shot Fired award. Here's mine. This is probably something maybe you picked up on, maybe you didn't, because there's a lot of beautiful aspects of this movie. But my favorite shot was like a little camera trick, which is they pick him up from the casino. The guy has like the knife to him, and he's wearing his very like 70s like leisure attire. Bond is.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they're in a drop top, and the rag top starts to come up, and then as the rag top comes up, it transitions into the next scene. Like that's like the blackout transition.
Did they use a wipe on that? I did not know.
Yeah, it was really sweet. Okay. I like that one.
That's fun.
That's my answer.
I mentioned it before. When they first get to Switzerland, it's like soaring around the world. You're just kind of all these helicopter shots of the scenery, and this is me dealing with a cold winter in Massachusetts right now and hating snow. So seeing it and appreciating it and thinking, "Oh, that looks nice. I would love to be there if I have to be cold." I enjoy I think a lot of people that love this movie in particular almost always one of the first three things they say that they love is the cinematography. So it's a very well shot movie from the beginning. Even I did also appreciate holding off on showing Bond at the beginning and all the cool close-ups of him lighting a cigarette and getting out of the car, and they keep him in the shadows. I thought, okay, this is a movie that knows they're revealing a new Bond.
Right. Yeah.
And they're going to make you wait.
They make you wait for it, but it does pay off. Now, I will say
and his first line is him saying his name, I think.
Yeah. I'm Bond, James Bond.
Says, I'm Bond, James Bond. Like, I gotcha.
Like, let's get that out of the way.
All right.
Lazenby was 29 when they shot this. Looked a little bit older than 29 to me, but still very young, obviously. And he could have had a hell of a run. Because, like, think about it. If Roger Moore went into his 50s, 58, 57, 58, this guy's 29. He could have been your Bond for the next 2 decades.
Mm-hmm. Well, I liked hearing that he kind of thought the character was dumb, and he showed up at the premiere like with long hair and a beard, and he's like different. Knowing that, I thought he could have played the character more cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the scenes that I have the most problem with him is when it looks like he's trying to be like straight-laced Bond. And even in the beginning part of the movie, it sounds like he's doing an impression of Cary Grant. And that's the part that feels false. It feels like a guy that doesn't act just doing an impression instead of just being him. So knowing him and then seeing him in interviews, which I can't wait to listen to, he's like kind of a doesn't give a F kind of a guy.
Absolutely.
And that would have been very interesting if that's like to resign at the beginning is cool. Like, hey, you're not on this mission. Well, all right, fine, I quit. Bye. And then it'd be like, oh, wait, hold on. You're just going on vacay. That's kind of cool that he would just be that guy at work that's like, I'm doing what I want to do. Otherwise, I quit. So heck with you.
There's a link between Lazenby's Bond and Daniel Craig's Bond. Like, I feel like Daniel Craig's Bond, even though Daniel Craig's like a far superior actor, no disrespect to Lazenby, but what Craig does, I think, is what Lazenby could have done. So I know you haven't seen any of the Craig movies. It's it's a similar vibe.
I've seen, clips, of course. So I've seen him do it.
A little colder, maybe overall, but I felt like Lazenby could have been that kind of Bond, whereas Dalton was too cold and like too humorless.
Yeah.
I think that Lazenby, with some more films under his belt and some more experience, could have grown to what you're saying of like, I'm this kind of cool, badass, don't give a F Bond.
Right. Well, the fact that most of his fights were hand-to-hand combat. When he got the gun at the end, I kind of went, oh, we're back to this now. That's a shame. Because I kind of thought that was an interesting thing to do with him too. Like, he obviously was good at fight choreography. So even in the very first scene where he's like, get in the boat so I can shoot you for some reason. And then he just fights him off. I thought, okay, that's what his thing is. He's like, I don't have a golden gun. I have golden fists.
Yeah. Kind of, rough and tumble. A little rough and tumble.
Right. And so maybe you're right. Maybe if he had continued, that would have been something that they would have kept going to differentiate him from.
There's definitely, like I said, a lot of connective tissue to those Daniel Craig Bonds. And you know what? Speaking of the rough and tumble, that was my rewind that button, because anytime he had a fight scene, I was like, I'm in. I like how these are shot. I like how tough he is. I like the hand-to-hand. I like there's no guns. It shows you that like spy business isn't like as classy. And Connery was rough too. Like, you believe Connery is kicking somebody's ass. But in this one, I just love how, like you almost made an allusion to it earlier, like almost a Bourne aspect to it, like the way they're shot. It was really cool. That was my rewind. What did you have?
My rewind that is also a punch, but it is not Bond's. It is when, Tracy doesn't want to get into the helicopter. And her dad's like, get in the helicopter. She's like, no, I won't. And her dad punches her in the face. She got a lot of damage to the face of this movie, unfortunately, because Bond slaps her too.
He does.
Her father punches her and knocks her out, and then says the line. No, hold on. I have it. It's the classic, beareth the rod, spoil the child. That's it. He says, "Oh, spare the rod, spoil the child," and then they drag her unconscious body, knocked out by her dad. And when that happened, I let out the loudest, most embarrassing laugh. I was not expecting it. It's so inappropriate.
Yes.
That I got a weird kick out of it. I went, oh my gosh, 1969. And everybody was fine with it. It's cool.
The first 6 Bond movies, well, not just the first 6, like all of them, have a dash of inappropriate, chauvinistic misogyny. But the earlier ones definitely more. I mean, there's a scene in Goldfinger where Sean Connery's talking to a woman, and then Felix comes up and he says, "Tink, this is Felix. Tink, say goodbye to Felix." And he puts his hands on her shoulders, turns her around, smacks her on the butt, and tells her, "Man talk."
Yeah.
Like,
so knowing that, you kind of have to embrace it. Either you go with it or you don't.
it's great.
And that's part of it. You just, all right, that's part of the old Bond.
Yeah, very strange. Very strange.
And even the Mafia dad.
To me, the one-liner legend championship, I mean, is it not this never happened to the other fellow? How is it not that?
Yes, but
you have another one?
It bothers me. I liked it when he first said it because I thought, oh, that's what we're doing. And then they don't.
Sure.
So I think by itself, that's a cool line. And when you watch it in documentaries and clips from the movies, it's cool that they're acknowledging it. But the whole movie, I think it's too cheeky for its own good, to use a British term, that it just like, all right, we acknowledge it, but then forget that. We ignore that. So I guess I'll go with it too. But I did appreciate him saying, "I love you. I know I'll never find another woman like you. Will you marry me?" Because we know he will find lots of women since then. So
I will say,
I find that for the irony, I appreciate that line.
I will say,
Even
in
if he
that
meant it at
same
the time.
scene, I like where he says, because they're about to sleep with each other, and then he says, "You know what? We have to save that for our wedding night, and that's my New Year's resolution," or something like that. Because it's Christmas. Like, this movie is a Christmas movie, technically.
It is, yes.
They're on Christmas night. He says, "Will you marry me?" And he's like, "We can't sleep together. That's my New Year's resolution." And then he like knocks the bunk down, and she rolls on top of him, and he's like, "But it's not the New Year yet." So he's like, "I'll be more of a gentleman in about a week, but for now, let's just bang it out." Yeah. Let's just do it.
Yeah, it's my cheat day.
It's my cheat day. The prop shop pick, proper item for the movie that you'd love to own. I went with the kilt because it's just an odd.
Oh yeah,
odd Bond.
Kilt is good. I like the shirt. So you could have the kilt to get together. We make the outfit.
Okay, I like it.
It wasn't a puffy shirt, but it was.
It was approaches. It was approaches a puffy shirt. The best use of food or drink. To me, obviously, there's the martini that he gets with Draco. That's kind of the classic Bond, a Vesper martini, shaken not stirred. But also, I'm going to shout out the advertisement in Switzerland for the Toblerone, which is still around today. A lot of Toblerone love here. And I think there was even like a Toblerone and teeny or something advertised in the background. So it was like a chocolate martini, I think. Okay. So that's what I'm going with. What do you have?
Yeah. Well, it's not food yet, but I'll give a shout out to the chickens that are just giving Ruby so much trouble. She's obviously making, eggs, which is also timely right now. So, it'll be the chicken and the egg, whichever comes first.
And as you mentioned, the interesting dinner plates.
That's true. All the ethnic food that look like dongs.
Very phallic food.
Phallic food. Ooh, imagine that restaurant.
Plot hole parade. To me, there was a few, but the biggest one for me. So when he's trying to go to the lawyer's office and he wants to get information on where Blofeld is or what Blofeld's doing, and this lawyer in Geneva has the connection to Blofeld and where he's at. He goes into his office. We see the lawyer leave and go down the elevator as Bond is walking in. Bond somehow has a key. We are not explained how he has the keys to this lawyer's office. He goes into the office. I'm assuming that at some point he lifts the keys from the lawyer, because when the lawyer locks the door, he goes down the elevator as Bond's coming in. So unless I missed it, the lawyer gets downstairs and realizes, oh, where are my keys? Because he is like, oh, where did I put my keys?
Mm-hmm.
So he then, I guess, presumably would go back upstairs to look for his keys, right? But during this time, Bond has a crane operator working on one of Draco's buildings that we see his name in the background. And I'm going to talk more about this guy in a minute, the blonde guy. He gets a safe cracking device lifted up to the window. He cracks the safe while he's reading a Playboy.
Sure.
And then lowers the contents of the safe back down to this guy, all in the time that it takes the lawyer to come back up to realize his keys are missing.
Where did I lose those keys?
That is a long time.
Yeah.
So that's a plot hole inconsistency. Also on the Playboy, I think for a second we see a fully nude woman.
Oh.
I don't know if you caught that, but Bond's looking at the centerfold as he's walking down the hallway, and you see it for a glimpse. There is a
HD, man.
Yeah, there is a nude woman.
For that.
At one point in one of the Bond movies too, you see nipple.
Well, even when he goes into, why do I always forget her name? The chicken girl.
Ruby.
When he goes into her, Ruby. I don't know why Ruby won't stick. He goes into her room, and I remember this happened a lot in Bond movies too, where they'll have like the sheet covering, and they'll like turn to they're obviously naked underneath the sheet, and it's close. It is pretty close, and I think those were the scenes when I was a kid. When it was on TV, I would be like, "Go play with your brother for a little bit."
yeah, I hear that one. Our next one. The Marty, something's got to be done about your kids award for what happens the next day. To me, does he not just, it has to pick up right where it left off.
Yeah.
And we see him in the car.
Kind of already, they've done it for us with all the sequels. They basically, he's not going to that grave until
a few movies down the road.
So he just goes about his day. But we talked about this before. I would have loved to have seen what happens the next day where she does not get shot or she doesn't die. Like, what would they have done?
Yeah, where would they have
now
gone?
It's a husband-wife team.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Very different.
To me, I think that if Lazenby came back, you'd have to pick up right here. Like he's still in the car. The same way they do in Back to the Future. We have to know right at that moment, what does he do next?
Yeah.
Does
Except
he go
now
after
Tracy is played by Elizabeth Shue. And she has a bad wig.
The genre swap machine. Imagine this movie as a different genre. I think I could see a musical.
Ooh. Yeah.
I could see this as a musical.
Fun.
What did you put in a different genre?
I put rom-com, but with Blofeld and his sidekick Bunt. I thought those two, I want to know their story. How, what's the relationship? She's like, is she always that hard? Like, does she have a romantic side? And is that why he's driving?
I like it.
At the end. So I think that Blofeld and Bunt.
Okay.
And and did she get jealous of the parade of angels of death?
Well, how could you not? Those angels of death, they were throwing 100,
Hey, Yeah, the problem wasn't what he did. It was just how do you pick the first two? Well, I think it's because Ruby definitely made a point. She's like, stand back, girls.
Yeah, Ruby was all in. The SNL, Seinfeld, Tarantino, or pro wrestling trade. This is where we replace one actor with somebody from these universes. Who do you have? I'm interested.
Yeah, I know. I came up with this category and I had terrible trouble with it. Like, I don't even know who I would pick because I was picturing a James Bond movie with SNL people, and I'm like, well, it's already been done.
It has been done.
Mike Myers did that for us. And even Will Ferrell is in that. So I was just kind of going through my mind of SNL people. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing SNL. As far as Seinfeld characters, I would say I'll give Bond to Mickey.
Mickey.
For the rage.
Okay.
Rage.
Okay. Oh, I see. I see what you got. Okay. You know what? I went in the pro wrestling universe. No shocker there. And Blofeld is The Rock.
Ooh.
And there has to be some big fight scene between the two of them.
Yeah. Did you like, speaking of Blofeld, do you prefer Donald Pleasance to Telly Savalas?
Yes.
Did you like Telly Savalas as Blofeld?
I have mixed feelings on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on it. I
see why they did it because he had to be more physical.
Yes. And he did
Donald
a lot
Pleasance,
more.
I wouldn't really believe
Going down like a luge.
Down the bobsled.
Or bobsled or whatever it is.
But Pleasance was scary. He didn't have to do anything. You just sit there and look creep.
Donald Pleasance was better. Now, they had Blofeld. What's interesting is Blofeld's a part of Spectre, right? Spectre was first created in the book for Thunderball. And Kevin McClory helped come up with the idea of Thunderball, right? And Kevin McClory was a producer, and he had the rights to it. And so all the Blofeld and Spectre characters, since they came out of this original Thunderball source material, once McClory and Eon Productions had a falling out, they could no longer use Blofeld, right? Who was the big Bond bad. And so there's a scene in, it's Man with the Golden Gun? So it's one of the Moors where the opening of it is, or no. Yeah. It's one of the Moors. The opening of it is Blofeld's, for some reason, like wheelchair bound, and Bond picks him up with the leg of a helicopter and sends him down a smoke chimney in a factory. And upon pleading with Bond to not kill him, Blofeld says, "I could buy you a delicatessen." The most unexplainable line.
There's no rhyme or reason why he decided that's what Bond would
I'll buy you a delicatessen, is what he said as he's dying.
That's got to be an inside joke or something,
it's
right?
So strange. It's so strange.
Oh, boy.
Which one is that?
I like it, though. And then wasn't that the Blofeld that it's obviously not any of the other actors, and it's kind of like the chiropractor in Plan 9 from Outer Space, where they go out of their way not to show his face.
Right. It was very strange.
So they had to kill him. They had to kill him because they knew they weren't going to use him anymore.
Yeah. I'll buy you a delicatessen.
Buy you a delicatessen.
It's very strange.
Why not? Hey. Well, it didn't work. So what should he have said? Comment below. What should he have offered instead of a delicatessen?
Here's what it says in the Reddit for James Bond. Why does Blofeld offer to buy James a delicatessen in stainless steel? Is what I guess the full line is.
Oh. Like Elon Musk made a delicatessen.
So it's in For Your Eyes Only as well. For Your Eyes Only was made during the dispute with McClory. McClory was going to use Blofeld character in Never Say Never Again, so Cubby wanted to show Blofeld was just a common thug with his mafioso-style bribe offer. The line was mentioned in Cubby Broccoli's autobiography, When the Snow Melts. It refers to Italian mafia members offering this as a bribe to get something in exchange. A delicatessen in stainless steel was and still is the top of the line quality. Simply put, your food is better prepared on the surface that's easily cleaned and will not have bacteria clinging to it, unlike a wooden cutting board or other surfaces. Also keep in mind, many vendors in the 1900s sold their food on the streets of New York carts. If someone had a shop or a delicatessen, they were obviously doing very well.
Digging deep.
Digging deep. All right. The peak of the timeline / peak of their powers check. This is peak of their powers for George Lazenby. Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Not for Diana
Compared
Rigg.
to?
I mean, for Lazenby,
Diana Rigg did
Lazenby,
Diana
he
Rigg
never
did a
did
lot.
anything really substantial again. But Diana Rigg,
Right.
this is not the peak of her powers.
Did you see Last Night in Soho?
No.
That's her last movie. Edgar Wright.
Oh, okay.
She passed away, I think, even before the movie came out.
She passed away in 2020, I know.
Yeah. So this is she filmed it, and it's I think it's a very good movie, actually. And she's very good in it, and is different than what you would expect.
Well, to me, Diana Rigg, I mean, she would go on to be nominated for a lot of awards, Golden Globes and stuff like that. She was in Game of Thrones, obviously. That's where a lot of people might know her from today's time. She got a lot of
Bond loved her eyes and her Golden Globes.
He did, but
and her earlobes.
And he liked the earlobes. So I think that it's
a lot of earlobes in this movie.
Peak of the powers for Lazenby, not the peak of the powers for Diana Rigg, not the peak of their powers for Telly Savalas. He'd be Kojak a couple years after this.
Do you think it's the peak of the powers of James Bond? And you have to get into it, because at the end I want to know where this ranks in your Bond levels.
So no, not the peak of the powers for Bond. Bond gets much better as the story continues. I will say, what's funny is after this movie, Sean Connery comes back for Diamonds Are Forever, which is not a great Bond movie, but a great title and a great song, but not a great movie. But he just comes up out of a little tunnel. And he's like, oh, I think I got lost there. That's how they bring him back.
So they're still playing the audience knows.
Yes. But I will say Bruce Glover is in the movie, which is Crispin Glover's dad. And you can tell immediately that they're related.
Okay. But he could have also come out of the manhole and go, that was brutal.
See, I appreciate that joke.
Dig deep, Seinfeld fans.
So, okay, I want to hear you on this one. Directorial what ifs. So this is where we say, would this movie be better if it was directed by Steven Spielberg or if it was directed by Martin Scorsese?
I will say Spielberg, because Spielberg always wanted to do a James Bond movie.
He did.
And George Lucas talked him out of it, said, I have something better. I have a character that's better than James Bond, and it's Indiana Jones. And thus we have 3 very good movies about Indiana Jones because Spielberg wanted to do a Bond movie. So I think he would have done a great Bond movie. And, Scorsese is great too, but Scorsese, I don't know if this is in his wheelhouse. It would be talk about a different Bond.
Very different.
Now would be Leonardo DiCaprio is James Bond.
Yes.
And Robert De Niro is Blofeld.
So I will say that this is not peak of the powers for Bond, but it's not peak of the powers for Spielberg. This would be a great Martin Scorsese movie. The crime element, I feel like he could really bring the serious drama of the love story. I almost kind of liken it to what he did in Casino with De Niro and Stone. And I just feel like he could pull it off, really feel like he could pull it off. And I'm also excited. They announced this week, The Rock and Leonardo DiCaprio in a Scorsese crime movie based in Hawaii. Did you read about this? This is incredible.
No, how exciting. Okay.
That's confirmed this week. So I go Scorsese on this one. Okay. I will say I cheated on this next category. It is the end credit song fantasy. So if we could make this like a song like Men in Black or Wild Wild West, what would it be called? Who would perform it? What would the chorus be? I cheated on this. So I'm going to tell you my cheat, and then I'll hear what you came up with. But I actually used an existing song I want you to imagine it. We're going to change the lyrics just to include Tracy's name. But I want you to imagine she gets shot, and instead of da-na, 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 that comes in, we hear, you've been struck by a smooth criminal. Tracy, are you okay? Said, Tracy, are you okay?
Oh.
Are you okay, Tracy?
Diana Rigg, are you okay?
Diana, are you? And then we could go right into Dirty Diana.
Dirty Diana Rigg. Yeah.
So I got Michael Jackson, Smooth Criminal. I know it's a cheat. I know
so
it's
you went 80s. Yeah. Because my thought on this category was, especially in the 90s, there was a big, like the big end credit song became the hit. Disney, of course, did it with all, Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King, and then Men in Black, Wild Wild West. We done did it again, y'all. And my version was more of going with the Goo Goo Dolls, because they had the song Iris from City of Angels, which came out in the 90s, and that was Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan, where it also ended tragically. Spoiler alert for this 90s movie, where Nicolas Cage was an angel who fell in love with Meg Ryan, a human, and decided, I don't want to be an angel anymore. I want to be with Meg Ryan. And it does not go well in the end either for this person. So my version was kind of like a Tracy thing as well. And I did write words down, and I don't remember, but I don't know what I did with them, unfortunately. Oh, yeah, here we go. The chorus is basically, something along the lines of, if you walked into the ocean, I would save you. And as long as, if you walked in the ocean, I would save your life. As long as your mob boss dad pays me, I'll make you my wife. I'm still getting down with multiple Bond girls. However, I'll never find another woman like you until diamonds are forever.
Ooh, there we go.
Tracy.
I like that one. I like that one.
Getting like all Weird Al Yankovic on that one. Pick Six.
So here we go. We have a couple more. Okay. We're going to go to, is this true trivia nugget from the movie? We talked about Lazenby a lot. We're going to go into our interview, though, with Lazenby right now, and then we'll come back with more Pick Six to finish these categories. And he joins me now, one of 6 men to play the iconic role of James Bond 007 with over 65 acting credits to his name. The living legend himself, Mr. George Lazenby, joins us on the program. Mr. Lazenby, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing okay. Apart from the virus is bothering me, just the fact that it's out there.
Yeah.
It changed my life. I don't travel much anymore. And, but other than that, things were good.
Well, it's great to hear, sir. I mean, obviously it's changed everybody's life in many different ways. But we're glad that you're safe. I'm glad that I'm safe. And we're able to have this conversation today about what I think your journey, your story, your life is really one of a kind. And I'm excited to talk to you today about it. I mean, everybody knows your name. Everybody's seen your face at one point or another. But I wanted to start with this. You obviously grew up in Australia, lived in Australia for quite some time. Talk to me about kind of beginning out there. Were you well off in Australia? Were you from a working family?
No, I was from a working family. I had a bank account. So we were a pretty poor family. And I fell in love with Jack Fingleton's daughter. Jack Fingleton was captain of the Australian cricket team. And his best friend was the Prime Minister, Bob Menzies. And I fell in love with his daughter. And I went up there one day to take her out. She'd only go out with me during the day, after I asked her about 7 times. And her brother attacked me and put a headlock on me on the lawn. And his mother come out and saved me from that. And then I went into the house, and there was Bob Menzies, the Prime Minister, sitting on the couch talking to Belinda's father, Jack Fingleton, the cricket captain. And I said, Jesus, mate, you look like Bob Menzies. Because I'd never been that close to the Prime Minister. And she was walking across the room, and she put her hand over her eyes as she walked across. Anyway, we got along, her boyfriend was down in Sydney doing these exams, and we started going out together. And then the father didn't like the idea of me being with her because I was a motor mechanic and then a car salesman. And, he expected her to do better than that, so he sent her over to England to work with Lord Snowden. And I was, getting like 5 letters a day at first, and then all of a sudden they thinned out to one a week. So I knew she'd met somebody, and I got on a boat, and it took me 6 weeks to get to London. And I couldn't find her because she wasn't at the address where she was when she was writing to me. And there was no internet or cell phones or anything to do any deep looking. But anyway, one day I was in the Overseas Visitors Club, and a guy came in and said, "Oh, I just saw Belinda down in the road with a bunch of cricketers." So I went down there, and my heart was beating, and next thing I know, she's right in the middle of all these cricketers. And I said, "Can you come outside? I want to talk to you." I said, "No, whatever you've got to say to me, you can say to me here." I said, "No, I want to talk to you outside." And then this guy, must have been the one that she was with, poked his head, and you heard what she said. And my fist came up automatically and decked him. Didn't even think. And so I picked her up and took her outside, put her in the car. It was right-hand drive. And she hops out, and all these cricketers are coming out of the pub. And I took off. But then I knew where she was because of the cricket team, the Oxford cricket team. And so I wrote her a letter, and she said, "Well, my boyfriend's busy doing his exams. We can see each other platonically." And strangely enough, no one, me or anyone I worked with, knew what platonic meant. I was taking around all the salesmen. What's platonic mean? I'm going to find out. That thing. And then I just wrote back yes. And she said, "We can see England platonically." And I said, "Okay." And I went and saw the guy who delivers the cars. And I said, "Where's the furthest car you got?" And he said, "Bristol, on the other side of England." I said, "I'll deliver it for you for free." So I called her up and I said, "Have you seen Bristol?" And she said, "No." "Let's do it." And so we went over to Bristol, and I had snatched the key off the office at the desk of her room as well as mine. And I went to go to a room that night, and I had diarrhea, which I'd never had before. And every time I went to go in the hall, I had to go back to the toilet. And so I gave up after about 6 tries. And then I think English food got to me. And next morning at breakfast, she told me that she couldn't believe I didn't try to get into her room. And funny, she knew. But anyway, on the way back to London, the guy traded a Mark 10 Jaguar, which has a big front seat. I thought, geez, I've come all the way from Australia. I might as well. I went underneath the freeway and grabbed hold of her. She cried the whole way through. And then she was leaning against the door, and then she came at me, and I kind of put my hand up to duck her. She said, "I love you." So she moved in with me, and that's why I stayed in England. And I'd never met an actor, by the way, when I got the Bond job. I had not met an actor. I'd met male models, but that was it. And I told them that I'd worked in Manchuria and Russia and places I didn't think they could check on. And
because back then, people didn't have the internet or IMDb.
No, they didn't.
Yeah,
no.
Just search you up real quick. So you could have made up however many films. And when you say you told them, was this Cubby Broccoli you were talking to?
Yeah, Cubby and Harry.
Cubby and Harry Saltzman. Okay. And they were the producers of Bond.
What's that?
They were the producers of the James Bond films back in the day.
Yes, that was the originals. Mm-hmm. Harry Saltzman wanted to buy the rights. He didn't have the money. And they brought Cubby Broccoli in, who had the money. And that's how they got together. So, and I was then they found out, they brought the director back from Switzerland to meet me. They were so impressed with my physical, because I didn't say much. I had an Australian accent. And next thing I knew, the director comes in from Switzerland to London to see me. And he said, "Tell me what you've done." And I don't know what made me do it, but I said, "I've never acted in front of a camera in my life." And he got up and started laughing, walking around the room, saying, "They brought me back from Switzerland to see you. God, stick to your story. I'll take you over. Let's go over and stick to your story that you originally told them, and we'll go over and see them." So we went over to the road, and they were outside their office door. They said, "Get him out of here. He's a closed pig." They called me almost closed pigs. So I was just about to go up and thump him before I left, and Peter said, "I want to test him." "You're not testing him at the studio. We're the laughing stock of the industry," and they've tested 800 guys already. And Peter said, "Well, I'll test him at your place." He said, "Do you want to?" Because they had to be nice to the director, because Peter was, with the Bond people ever since they started. And but he hadn't directed one yet. He had edited them and done things like that. But meanwhile, okay. So they got a crew, and they started testing me at Peter's place, and they were sending me to a voice coach who was coming out when I went in was Harold Wilson, the British Prime Minister. He's having voice lessons because half of England couldn't understand him. He had this Cockney, middle of England accent. And so I said, "Geez, who's that?" She said, "Be quiet." She was a real cranky voice teacher. And just lay down on the floor. And she laid me on the floor and put a foot in my stomach and said, "Now breathe. You've got to fill up your stomach with air." And then she started to get rid of my accent. And then they had to change my walk, because I used to walk like a cowboy side to side. And you can't do that in cinemascope. So they changed my walk, they changed my talk. And finally, the United Artists, who were distributors of the Bond film, wanted to see me do a fight scene. And Harry, I remember him saying, "He's Australian, all Australians can fight." And he said, "No, we want to see him." So they got about 8 stuntmen and lined them up. And they're all going to come at me one at a time. And I'm supposed to, duck their punches and whatever. Well, the first guy, I'd only been in real fights in my life. So I hit him right in the chin and he went down. His name was Yuri Geller. He's a Russian wrestler. And I said, "Oh my God, you better kill me." And then Harry Saltzman pushed me up against the wall. And he said, "We're going with you. Tell anybody and the deal's off. And get out of town and then call me and let me know where you are, and I'll call you to come back for the press conference." Okay, so I went back to Paris, where I'd been living. And I was with 6 of my mates. I'd been away 4 months. And they said, "Where the hell have you been? We've been looking for you." And I said, "I was in London." "Doing what?" "Testing for a film." "What film?" "Bond film." They said, "Did you get it?" And I said, "Yeah." And they all laughed. They didn't believe me. I was lucky. And then I went off to the south of France, and I called Belinda, and she came down. I got her a ticket, and she was on her way down when they called me, "Get your ass back to London. We're doing the press conference tonight." Oh, dear. And so I met Belinda at the airport. I told her I'd come back. I couldn't come back. I got so busy after that. But I went to the press conference, and they proved on me, obviously. And then we started rehearsing and shooting. Well, for 9 months. Never heard of a film taking that long to shoot. But we're 6 months in Switzerland, and I got sick of being up on this mountain after about 3 weeks. And I said to Harry, I said, I don't want to be up on this mountain anymore. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I have it. I've been to every restaurant up there 6 times. And I've been with every girl on the film. And I've done it all. And he said, well, how about if we lend you a helicopter at night and you can go into Zurich or Geneva or wherever you want? I said, fine, we'll do that for a while. So they loaned me a helicopter at night, and I didn't fly it, of course. The pilot did hand me the wheel at one stage, and it was going sideways. He grabbed it back. I then hadn't a clue how to fly a helicopter. But meanwhile, we did our 6 months up there, and then we went to Portugal. Did 6 weeks in Portugal, and a couple of weeks at Pinewood Studios. A silly thing happened. The Ford Cougar people gave me a Cougar, brand new, but left it at Pinewood. And Richard Harris had a big Rolls Royce, the big limousine one. And they wanted us to pay taxes on. And I said, no, I don't want to pay taxes on them. The taxes would cost as much as the car cost. And I said, well, as long as it exists, you've got to pay the taxes. I said, what do you mean as long as it exists? He said, well, some people just burn them, the cars. So Richard and I parked our cars in the middle of a lot at Pinewood, and they set them on fire. Mine had about 10 miles on it.
Why would people burn them? What was the purpose of that? Just to not pay taxes?
Don't exist. They don't exist. There's no tax.
Well, I guess that's one way to do it.
Yeah, well, that's what they told me to do. Pay the tax or burn it. And so that ended up there, and then they loaned me an Aston Martin. But then Triumph and Norton gave me a motorcycle. So I used to ride the motorcycle to work, and then they had to get me off those. So they lent me an Aston Martin if I don't ride the motorcycle because of insurance. So, there was a lot of stuff going on during that film. But then at the end of the day, I ran into this guy, Ronan O'Reilly. He launched all the English pop groups, the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, you name them. And he had Radio Caroline. He had this boat in the middle of the harbor that was in international waters. And he could play music from there. And the English only had 1 hour of pop music on a Sunday night or Saturday night on the BBC. That was all the pop music the English were getting at the time. And Ronan started this Radio Caroline, and with these Beatles and groups that were fantastic. And he got really wealthy doing that, and he was really important in the business. And he came up to me and said who he was, and he'd like to manage me. And I said, well, I'm under contract to the Bond people. He said, no, you're not. You've signed a letter of intent to sign the contract, but you've not seen the contract. So, because they were still making up the contract. And a letter of intent to someone who's not been an actor before and not knowing what's in the contract would win the case. So I believed him, and I wouldn't sign the contract. And they put $1 million in cash on the table, thinking that that's anything I understand. And it was hard to walk away from, but I did. And $1 million in those days, a Porsche was $5,000. So you imagine how much $1 million was. And then I said, where am I going to work? I can't work in England. And he said, you go to Europe. There's a guy that Clint Eastwood doing West, and he's making $250,000 a movie. So I believed him, and I went off to Europe. Every movie I got on, Tulsa and Broadway call up and tell them I'm under contract to them, and they won't be able to release the movie.
Oh, no.
I was getting thrown off every movie. And I finally went broke. I think I didn't get the $1 million, and he had the money that I saved up from the Bond film. That was $10,000 or something. They get like $50 million now. I got $10,000. And then I heard that the English were getting kicked out of Malta, and there's a lot of cheap boats down there. And this guy, was when became prime minister, told England to get out. A lot of them were just trying to sell their boats rather than sail them all back to England. So I went down there and I got this boat that was worth probably 20 or 30 grand for a cat. It was a catamaran, 34-foot catamaran. It was, I'd never sailed in my life. He gave me one lesson in the harbor. The guy I bought it off from Scotland. And then he left town. And the next day I sailed a Malta. Unfortunately, I had prevailing wind. I still remember the 56 degrees on the compass. I went right down the harbor. Then I didn't know how to stop it. I was turning it around and around. The sails were going everywhere. This guy came out and helped me. But I got caught in a storm later on. You know, life was pretty exciting. I had a girl with me who I ended up marrying because she got pregnant. And her brother told me that she's got to be worth a fortune, but the kid won't get any of the money unless it's born in marriage. So that's why we got married. And that was my first wife. And the girl's name's Melanie. She's the number one realtor in New York. So, you know, it's like everything I've done in life, I didn't have any training for. You know, I knew more about cars than most mechanics did when I was 15. Because my uncle used to put me on his knee from about 3 years old. And I'd go to garages after school and watch the mechanics work. And I thought that was going to be my life until they needed a sales manager. And the fact that I was a mechanic, I could drive the car and tell them what it needs fixing and how much it's going to cost. And that was the most valuable guy in a dealership, was a used car sales manager. So I got that job. And then, that's right, I was at a dance. And this guy was in front of me going up the stairs, and he kicked back at me. And I grabbed him by the leg and pulled him down, and the guy behind me said, "You're my size." And I whacked him, and he went down the stairs backwards. And it was the cop. He pulled out his badge. Oh, no. And so they took me into Canberra jail. Didn't charge me or anything, just locked me up. And came in, 3 of them come in with their sticks and just touched me on the stomach. And I pretended it hurt, and it didn't hurt. It didn't leave a mark. But eventually you get nausea, and that hurts. And they let me go the next day, no charges. But when I went back to the dance, nobody would dance with me. That's the guy, it's policeman. You know, so I went up to the band and said, "I want to be in your band." And they said, "What do you play?" I said, "Nothing. What do you need?" They looked at each other and they're like, "I'm nuts." "Well, we don't need anything. We're fine." As I was going out the door, electric basses had just come in. And one of them said, "Too bad he doesn't play electric bass." And I overheard it. And I went to the guitar shop because they didn't have electric bass in Australia at the time. And they taught me how to play bass on guitar. And then I got an electrician to make a bass amp. And I went back to him about 6 weeks later. I said, "I can play the bass now." And they said, "Oh, he's this nutcase again." And I showed him I could play, and any key, I just moved up and down the fretboard. And they said, "Okay, we can use you." And they wanted the amp more than me. And the guitar player really loved the amp. And so I started playing in the band. And to cut a long story short, I played for about 6 months. And then I broke away from them, took a couple of the guys with me, and started my own band. And that's when I had plenty of money then. I met Belinda, and it was started meeting different people.
And
then I
while
told
you were
her,
at the car, excuse me, I'm sorry, but while you were at the dealing the cars and you were the used car dealer, is that when a talent agent saw you and said you should be a male model? Was that around the same time?
that was in Australia I'm talking about. When I got to London.
Oh, this is when you got to London. Okay.
Yeah, this happened in London. I was selling used cars out in Finchley. And then this guy who I used to drink with at the Overseas Visitors Club, and I used to steal his women off him all the time. I didn't know he didn't like me. Actually, we used to drink together. He said, George, I'm leaving Mercedes-Benz. He was a Mercedes-Benz dealer at Park Lane. Go in and apply for my job on Monday, but don't go before. I said, okay, Errol. Errol Forbes was his name. And I went in there and I said, I'm here looking, I want to get Errol Forbes' job. And they said, oh, would you mind waiting in the office there? Errol had sold a bunch of cars and kept the money and ran off to Europe. And I didn't know that. And the next thing, I got 5 cops in the office with me. And they're asking me all about Errol. They're calling Australia, backing up my stories. And finally, they realized I was innocent. And the sales manager said, yeah, you can have his job after the cops left. And the sales manager was a drunk. He'd go to the pub at lunchtime and not come back. So I was running the place. And, it was in Park Lane, one of the main streets in London. And one day, Elizabeth Taylor came in, started looking at the cars. And she hardly spoke, but she said, I'm just looking. And then Richard Burton came in and said, she's not going to buy a car, and grabbed her by her arm and dragged her out. They were living in a Dorchester hotel, which is a few doors down. And it was a exciting place to work. But then this photographer came in. And he said, I'll buy this car if you let me take pictures of you. And I thought he was gay. So I sent Belinda along. And then next day he comes back and he says, no, you fool, I want you. They're looking for rugged guys because the models are all pretty boys before this time. And now they're going for rugged guys. So take these pictures down to this agency. After he took them, he gave me a bunch. And Scotty's agency on Bond Street. I went down there and I waited my whole lunch out for him to see me. They didn't see me, so I threw up in the air and walked out. And there was a guy doing pictures with Richard Avedon, one of the best photographers in the world. And he was holding his babies up while I was photographing him with all these different sweaters. And the babies were peeing on him. And he said, I can't do this, and walked off the job. And so Avedon came up to the agency with my pictures all over the floor, looking for another model because he had to go back to New York that night. And he said, get me this guy. And they didn't know who it was. But the photographer had his stamp on the back of him. And they rang him and they got me. They said, when can you get there? And I said, about 5 o'clock. He said, no, that's no good. You got to get there now. I said, okay, and I went there, and I was holding these babies, and I peeing on me, but I put up with it. And the next thing I know, about 3 months later, these pictures come out, and everybody wants to know who worked with the best photographer in the world. And I was booked night and day from that day on until I... ran out. I had to go to Paris to work because I'd done every ad in London. And I was working in Germany too because they banned model agencies in Germany because a lot of them turned into all houses. So they banned them all together. So anyone that looked German, which I apparently did, they'd rent you from Paris or London or whatever to go to Germany to do the photographs. So that was my life. And having an Australian accent, I didn't do any commercials on it where I spoke. I did commercials. I was just walking around with a big box, big fry comes into town, and all that sort of stuff. But I hadn't spoken in front of a camera. And I went back to London one day to see a friend of mine who wanted to be an actor. And he said, "You got to help me out." I said, "Why?" He said, "I've got a date with the biggest agent in London, and my girlfriend's coming back into town tonight, so I can't go. I don't want to leave her standing on the corner." I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." And the name was Maggie Abbott with CMA. It was called then. I think it's ICM now. And she was waiting on the corner of Bond Street, another street. And I said, "I'm Ken's friend, and he couldn't come, and so I've come to help you out." "Well, we better go because I was going to take you to a movie, a screening room, where she was, and we go to the screening room, and the Beatles, the Stones, you name it, all in there. That's how we saw movies." And I didn't see the movie. I was just staring at all these famous people. And then, and this is hard to believe, but Maggie, I took Maggie home. I didn't see her again. I went back to Paris. But the night that I was with these friends in Paris, not the night that I told them I did the Bond thing, but I was with these same people. This was before Bond. I picked up this girl, and I went home with her, and the phone was ringing. You know, they had phone lines those days. They didn't have cell phones. And she said, "It's Putu." I said, "How could that be? Nobody knows I'm with you." And it was Maggie Abbott. She rang my flatmate, and he said, "I went to this restaurant." She rang the restaurant. The maitre d' told her I went out with this girl. She found the number and called me. Now, you'd think I'd think that was important. She said, "You got to get back to London. I think you're right for a role that they're having trouble finding someone for." I said, "Okay." And I forgot about it. And about a month later, I went back to London, and I saw my friend. "What did Maggie want you for?" "Oh, yeah. She called me at this girl's place." I did call her back. "Let's go see her," because he wanted to be an actor. So I went to see her. She waited outside. She said, and then she said, I said, why do you think I'd make a good actor?" She said, "Well, you've got what they're looking for." I said, "What's that?" She said, "Arrogance." Said, "You're so sure of yourself." And so she said, I said, "What's the role?" She said, "James Bond." I couldn't believe it. And she gave me the address to go see him after she called up. And I told all these bullshit stories about working in places I thought they couldn't check on.
But is it true that you went and got the same suit that Sean Connery wore in the films?
Yes,
and
I
cut
did.
your hair?
I did. I got it by a fluke because there was one he didn't like. And he left it there. My arms are about an inch longer than his. So all we had to do was put the sleeves down an inch. And I wore that in there. That's how I wanted to look. And I got my hair cut where he got his hair cut. It was right down the road from Mercedes-Benz. Kurt the barber. And apparently Kurt Broccoli was in there after I got the job. Kurt told me. He said, "You know what? I was cutting Cubby Broccoli's hair after I'd finished yours, and you were getting your coat on and leaving. And Cubby said to me, 'That guy would make a good James Bond.'" And Cubby didn't remember that it was me or anything. I had to remind him. But that's how it all happened.
I mean, it's an incredible story, and here's the thing: on Her Majesty's Secret Service, the film that you were in, nowadays is regarded as a top 5 Bond film. And if you look at some websites, they have it listed number 1 or number 2. It's either on Her Majesty's Secret Service or Goldfinger. How do you feel about that after all these years? People really have now grown in affinity and fondness for the movie.
Well, my ego says so they should have. But the other part of me, I'm amazed because, Sean Connery knew more about acting than I ever would. And Roger Moore was up for it when I was up for it. He was waving to me, putting his arm around his face and hit his face when he saw me. And all the other guys, I just did the best I could. I knew, a little bit about acting, but I went to Charles Conrad acting school for 20 years after I did the Bond film. And he was the best teacher in the world. He used to put only he and she on the script, so you never had any idea who wrote or what it was about or the character. But we got to the point where we could pick up the writer's vibe. And it took me about 3 or 4 years before I could do that. I was in his B class for 3 or 4 years, and one day he gave me a script for a girl. And I started reading it and behaving like one. He said, now you can go into my A class.
Oh, wow. So, and you took acting lessons after landing, at that time, the biggest role in all of Hollywood. You do on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And then you go on to continue acting. Let me ask you, though. So there's this long kind of, I don't know, rumor, or people just assume that you weren't asked back to the Bond franchise, but you actually turned it down, correct?
Yes.
And that was when you talked about the $1 million and all that stuff. You turned it down, but then went on to still, you're acting to this day. Was there anything from the Bond experience that you look at now, with all the knowledge that you've gained throughout the years and the 20 years of acting classes? Do you look at your performance now and say, man, if I could have gone back and had I known now what I know, I could have played this role differently? Or are you satisfied with how the film came out?
No, I'm satisfied. I wasn't near half the actor I am now, but I could, I'm not looking for work, by the way, guys. I'm not the sort of guy that wants to get up at 7 in the morning and read lines at night and go to work. But unless the part was sensational, where you could really get out there. But on the other hand, I was quite pleased with my performance. There was nothing, I wasn't intimidated by camera because I'd been a model for years. And I wasn't afraid to stand in front of a camera, if you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the thing that some actors have the hardest time with, especially going from stage to screen, which I know you were a model before, but when they get on the screen, that camera changes their whole dynamic and their eye line.
Yeah, well, it didn't change me.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, you were used to it.
I just did my thing.
Looking, though, back at it, again, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is widely regarded as one of the best Bond movies of the 25 that they've done. And this last one that came out, No Time to Die, pays several allusions and tributes to that film, which I'm sure you've heard by now.
Yeah, I saw it.
Did you like it?
Parts of it.
Parts of it, yeah.
It was, it didn't seem to have any rhythm.
It was a little on the long side.
Huh?
It was a little long, right? It felt
yeah, it was a long shot. The car chases were unbelievable. Mm-hmm. It was. That's just my opinion. Some people I've met loved it, but it's one of those things. You just. I wouldn't have done it like that.
Right, and it's all.
I think they. Yeah, I think, they had the girl in the love scene and he gets killed at the end. But that's a different story.
Right. Right. Now, when you, though, obviously people know you from James Bond, but again, I said you have 65 acting credits to your name just on IMDb alone. What is looking at your career now, what has been the role that you've enjoyed the most? Is it James Bond or is it something else that you've played?
No, it was James Bond. Now they had the budget, the time. Everybody was an expert at what they did, and it was when I look back on life, it was my best experience. My first one.
Right out of the gate. And that's why I've always found your story so incredible is your first movie was the biggest movie in production at the time. I mean, there was nothing bigger than On Her Majesty's Secret.
No, it took 9 months to shoot.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's incredible and the film is so damn good. Like, it's such a great made Bond film. And here's the thing. I think everybody you can like or a Bond film, even if it's not very good. Your film is excellent, and it's really an upper echelon of the Bond movies themselves. I know you said that was your favorite role out of your career, but you're still acting to this day, correct?
Yeah, sometimes I do a bit of acting, and it's not hard for me now. I mean, I spent 20 years in an acting class, and I loved it. That's why I did it, because he told us nothing about the role we're playing, and it just get him, her on the script, and you go for it, and somehow or other you change your personality and everything. You come out the other side wondering, gee, how did I do that? And that's what acting's all about, is being able to not be yourself.
Right. And to find a way to channel that like you've done throughout your career, it's really impressive. Mr. Lazenby, I've already gone over on the time that we agreed upon. You can find George Lazenby on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at George Lazenby Official, website GeorgeLazenbyOfficial.com. Sir, it's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you today, and your legacy will be forever remembered, and your Bond will always be regarded as one of the best of all time. I thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, you heard from the man himself, George Lazenby. He kind of gave us a lot of the background on the movie, his love story, which kind of mirrors the love story in this movie in some ways. But there's a couple trivia facts that I want to bring up. There's really only 3 that I like, okay? So one of them is that We Have All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong, last song he ever recorded. It's true. He died a couple years after making the song.
Ironically, does not have all the time in the world.
Does not.
You are out of time.
Oof.
Last song I'll ever do.
The other one is Lazenby had an idea on the set where he said when Bond skis off the cliff, right? He was like, it would be cool if we ski off a cliff, when he's skiing, that is, before he starts killing people with that ski, which, by the way, that was actually a pretty cool, awesome moment.
The man with the golden ski.
Yeah. He suggested, what if Bond skis off the ledge and it looks like all hope is lost? And then he opens a parachute up. And it's like, da-da, da-da, da-da-da. This was Lazenby's idea. Well, the filmmakers, they didn't have the resources to pull it off at the time, but then they ended up using it for The Spy Who Loved Me a few years later, which is an iconic Bond moment where he skis off the ledge and opens the Union Jack parachute. Pretty amazing, if you ask me.
Was he happy about that they actually used the idea?
You know what? It's mixed reviews. It depends on who you talk to. Okay, 2 more things. Sean Connery later said after he saw this movie, he would have much preferred to do On Her Majesty's Secret Service than You Only Live Twice. He was like, I would have loved to do that movie instead of doing You Only Live Twice. I wish they would have done that one next. Maybe he would have stayed around. Because Sean was asking for $1.2 million to come back for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. A lot of money. 1.25, I believe. So he was asking for some big money here. The last one, and this one's just for you. According to Lazenby, he and a crew member played a prank on Ruby during the movie. This woman you love so much, the chicken woman.
I do. Chicken woman.
So, we talked about she draws the number on her leg. So a crew member warmed a sausage. You already know where this is going. And they put it under Bond's kilt. Right. And so when Ruby puts her hand under the kilt, they want to know how she's going to react when she feels this.
She's going to accidentally reach up the kilt and feel the
warm sausage
up against Lazenby's leg.
Right. And then she like no sells it. Doesn't even react.
Right.
Professional.
It's not our first kilt.
Not our first kilt feel. So
Right.
those are some of your trivia nuggets.
Oh, what a time.
Oh, what a time.
To work in Hollywood.
Few more categories here. If you had one question for a character, what would it be?
Oh, if I was like interviewing
a character, what would
the
you
fictional
ask?
character?
Mm-hmm.
I would ask Bond, what does love mean to you? What does marriage mean to you, sir?
Yeah. I would ask him if the kilt was necessary. Like, was it necessary for your Scottishness, or could you have like gone without it? Because it does seem a little awkward to see him in the kilt. It's a little awkward.
You know what? I think I read somewhere that people thought that on the crew, they didn't care for Lazenby and they kind of dressed him like a fool sometimes.
Look, other than the kilt and the leisure suit, other than the kilt and the leisure suit, when he's at the casino, his fits are kind of killer in this movie.
He looks good when he's being, that Bond. But then they kind of mess. I mean, they give him a beanie.
To give him a beanie
when he's got to go ski.
Yeah, they do.
When he put on the beanie, I'm like, oh, are you cold?
Yeah, it was a little.
I mean, the only thing worse is they put like the big, fuzzball on top, and
I would have preferred it. It'd been funny.
With a scarf and like mittens.
All right, the next one, the "I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife" award for the MVP of the movie. Ironically, he didn't get to do that. The character Bond.
No, and but the MVP is the wife.
The MVP is Diana Rigg, right? Teresa DiVincenzo is the MVP of this movie. She's the best one.
It's a good thing he didn't wait till New Year's.
It's a really good thing. Sequel, prequel.
That's the lesson that we take from it.
Never wait. When you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. Where's that movie from?
Harry Met Sally.
Thank you.
Harry Met Sally.
Thank you.
Ooh, Billy Crystal is James Bond. And Meg Ryan. Careful. Be careful, Meg Ryan.
Sequel, prequel, or prestige TV? What would be the best way to continue the story? I want to see a miniseries. I would like On Her Majesty's Secret Service to be broken up into a miniseries where she does die, but she dies like halfway through the series. And then we get the revenge tour.
Ooh, John Wick.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
All right, now this one.
Or it's a sequel. It's a sequel series where she does die. Maybe that's the beginning.
I like it.
That's how it starts. James Bond's wedding.
I like it.
She dies, and he's like, "Oh, she's just rested. She's just rested." And then he looks at the camera and says, "But I'm not."
I threw this one in here last night as I was watching this movie because it inspired a new category. So I didn't tell you about this one, so it's okay.
I like it.
You don't know it.
Okay.
So this is the Captain Jack Sparrow Career Achievement Award for the character who stumbles their way throughout the movie, and you wonder, are they really good at what they do? To me, this is for the blonde guy.
The guy who climbs the mountain?
Is he really good at his job? Because he helps Bond a few times. He's supposed to be Bond's like counterpart, and helping him out, right? But he's really bad at going undercover. And then when they discover him climbing up the mountain and they shoot at him, they miss him there. So it was okay to kill him at that moment. But then they say, we're going to usher you down the mountain and we'll return your stuff to you later. And then Bond sees him hanging upside down, dead. Now,
dead and frozen, yeah.
That was a dummy, right?
I hope so.
It looked like a
crappy
dummy.
Job. It
looked like a dummy. But I don't think that guy was good at his job. He got caught.
No, he's reading Playboy when he's on the clock.
It's just not good. It's just not good. Is somebody stuck out to you? Like, is this guy really good at his job other than George Lazenby?
I didn't think Blofeld was up to snuff on this one. He his ideas we're gonna mess with cereal, and he's got the girls that he's hoping that they'll all remember to turn on the tape recorder at midnight. Even when that was his plan, at midnight you have to listen to this. And I'm like, I'm asleep by 9:30. I have to set an alarm.
It's not going to work. That's not going to
listen
work
to
for me.
yeah, and then we're going to go out and do it. And what if we don't? And the ladies are not going to be able to be incognito.
Yeah.
They definitely stand out. So, and then he doesn't recognize Bond for the first like 3 weeks that he's there. It's the same guy, and he doesn't even shoot the gun. He's not Donald Pleasance. So I think he kind of was on sleepwalk to this one.
I agree. Well, that's about to wrap up our time for this week's Pick Six. Before we reveal if we would recommend this movie, I'm going to rattle off my 25 list. This is my list of the Bonds as I have them ranked.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
So you ready for it? I'm going to go from 25 to 1.
Is this list in the book?
It's in the book.
This list in the book?
This list is in the book. Bond James
Where can we find? There's the book right there.
Bond James Bond.
Available now on Amazon.
Shaken, not stirred. Here we go. This is my ranking. I'm going to give you the ranking of the Bond films and then of my Bonds. This is according to my book, okay?
Okay.
25, License to Kill. 24, Living Daylights. 23, Octopussy. 22, Quantum of Solace. 21, Moonraker. 20, A View to a Kill. 19, The World Is Not Enough. 18, The Man with the Golden Gun. 17, Spectre. 16, Tomorrow Never Dies. 15, Diamonds Are Forever. 14, Die Another Day. 13, Thunderball. 12, From Russia with Love. 11, You Only Live Twice. And then here's my top 10. For Your Eyes Only, Roger Moore. Live and Let Die, number 9, Roger Moore. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, number 8, with Lazenby. Number 7, No Time to Die, with Daniel Craig. Number 6, GoldenEye, with Pierce Brosnan. Number 5, The Spy Who Loved Me, with Roger Moore. Number 4, Skyfall, Daniel Craig. Number 3, Dr. No, Sean Connery. Number 2 is Goldfinger, with Sean Connery. And number 1 is Casino Royale. It's the best James Bond movie. And then my list of Bonds, in order from 1 to 6, Sean Connery's the best, then Daniel Craig, Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan, George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton.
Sorry, TD.
TD did not get the job done.
Yeah,
Jeff,
that's when I checked out.
Would you recommend this movie?
For the history, if you're interested in the Bond series as part of film history, yes. As a movie by itself, it wasn't for me. I don't see myself watching this again anytime soon. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, it's an interesting moment in time, but not a great movie.
It's one of my favorite Bonds just for the swings that they took. It is too long. Even though I put in my top 10, it's too long.
Over 2 hours.
It's 220. It's 220. Yeah. It's a long movie. Yeah. Whereas Bond films were, I feel like if you cut 20 minutes out of this movie, 25, maybe 30 minutes, you're looking at a lot better film. But as you said, this movie is widely regarded as one of the best Bond movies by critics nowadays. And Steven Soderbergh, as you talked about, loves this movie. Christopher Nolan says it's his favorite James Bond movie. There's a lot of elements of this that is good and is very, I'd say, part and parcel with the books. Like very much the Bond in the books than the Bond that we know that Sean Connery kind of helped develop. And then the humor of Roger Moore, or the over-the-top action of Pierce Brosnan, or the coldness of a Timothy Dalton. Like this is a very, the beats of Bond in this match up, right? And I'm telling you, if you ever get into the Craig series of movies, you'll go, oh, I see the connective tissue here of those movies with On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So it's one of my favorites, but it is the first pick that is not given a green light. I liked Ed Wood. Yeah. You liked The Phantom. Yeah. Now, Jeff, have you put into thought of what's next for us?
I have, and it was definitely inspired. It was definitely a reactionary choice to watching this. As I was watching Lazenby do what I thought at first was a bad Cary Grant impression, it made me. This is not a good sign when you're starting to watch a movie. When you think about a movie you like more and you wish you were watching that one. And the movie I wanted to watch, which kind of feels like Bond, but it's 10 years before this movie. It is Cary Grant, Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest.
Oh, yes.
This is a wrong man kind of movie, so it's a little different than Bond, but it's definitely a reactionary choice. So Brett has not seen North by Northwest.
No.
We'll see.
We're going to see. I'm excited. That's going to be next on Pick Six.
And
we're going from
I'm
the
giving
90s.
you permission to not like it.
We're going from the 90s to the 60s to the 50s. We're all over the map. And I'm excited to watch.
You thought we were going to do 80s movies, friends, and we haven't done one.
Haven't done one yet. Yeah. We're definitely going to do some. I haven't done one yet.
We'll go. I've got 80s movies.
All right. Well, that is the General Jeff Smith movie guide.
Yeah. Insta.
At Brad Gilmore, bradgilmore.net, which still bothers me. But
get the book. Bond,
James Bond by Brad Gilmore and Mike Kalinowski, exploring the shaken and stirred history of Ian Fleming's 007, available in print thanks to our good friends at Mango Publishing. More books on the way, and we'll talk to you with North by Northwest on Pick Six.
Yeah.
All the precious things love has in store.
Pick Six!